Hey squad, welcome back. Now today I'm continuing my series entitled Producing in Color. Now if you haven't seen the videos I've already done in this series, make sure you check out the link above and you'll find it also in the description. Anyway, the kind of vibe I'm cooking up today is the kind of music I listen to most of the time when I'm driving in my car. That lo-fi retro hip-hop R&B flavor that you can just chill out to. Now instead of sampling a bunch of records, chopping them up and placing them to create the vibe, I'll show you how you can use your own musical creativity to create the vibe to give you that lo-fi retro flavor. Now as always, if you're feeling what I'm doing, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel and drop me a comment. It's always great hearing from you. Anyway, it's that time, so let's get into it. Now for this production, I'm going to start things off with an 8-bar chord progression. Now the first part is going to sound a little bit dissonant, but once I put all the layers on, it will start to make sense. Now let me show you the progression and I'll show you what the chords are while I demonstrate. Okay, so let's put this down. As you can see, I'm working at 85 BPM and I'm just going to stick with the standard Logic electric piano. We're going to mess with it in terms of adding some effects and processing later on. But for now, we're going to use it as it is and put down this 8-bar chord progression. Okay, so now I've laid the foundation for the whole piece. The entire track is going to revolve around this progression. Before we move on to adding additional layers, I'm going to add some really cool effects to kind of give this that sort of older retro vibe. Now the two effects I'm starting with are Isotope's Vinyl, which is a free plugin you can download straight away from isotope.com. And secondly, I'll be using Logic's Fat Effects. So let's just mess with that for a minute and then we'll move on. There's so much you can do with this right here and I'll be using on a number of the tracks. But for now, I'm going to be focusing on setting the speed or RPM to 45. And that will be simulating a 12-inch vinyl single which runs at 45 RPM. I'm changing the year to the 1960s. So let's A-B this for now. So you can hear a lot of the low end has been taken out and the focus is really on the mid-range. Okay, that's sounding pretty cool. We could do some additional things like adding some warp to this. So the second plugin I'll be using is the Fat Effects, and I'm kicking things off with the preset Res Shimmer. So this is what the preset looks like, but I'm going to paste my own settings in, and this is what I've adjusted. Okay, so as you can see right here, I've added another layer, and this is the Mellotron, and it's a stock Logic software instrument. So to pull this up, you come down here and you select Vintage Mellotron, and this is what the unit looks like. And I've started off with the flutes presets. You've got a number of presets to choose from, and I've adjusted the parameters to create the sound I'm looking for. Okay, so my aim is to add more aging to this sound. So what I'm going to do right here is insert once again the Isotope vinyl plugin, and I'm going to go with the 1960s sound and at 78 RPM. I've set it to warp and set it to stereo. I've also added a stereo spreader just to give this a little bit more width, and I'm using the default preset. Now the next thing I want to do is increase the tempo because I feel this is quite slow actually for the vibe I want to create. I'm going to go quite a way up to about 98 BPM. So let's hear these two together. Cool, that's sounding fine so far. Next thing I want to do is add some drums, but in the interest of time, let me go away, program up the drums, and I'll come back and explain what I did. So as you can see, I've laid down my drum tracks, and I'm just going to go through real quick and show you what type of sounds I've used and how I've processed them to make them fit within the genre. Now this is my vinyl kit. Let me just take off the filter and just go through this real quick. Okay, so that's the kit in its raw form. I've got a filter switched on here, and we're cutting off a fair bit of the top end and the mids as well. Only the kick drum is going through this. And again, as you can see, I'm using the old EXS24 sampler. On this machine, I'm running 10.4. On that machine, it's 10.5. For me, it still gets the job done, but if you're on 10.5, of course, this will show up in the sampler. Anyway, moving on. The kick drum I'm using is this one. Let's just go through the kick drum channel strip. What we've got here is we've got loaded up, we've got a compressor, and we've got a couple of EQs, then another compressor, and then this final EQ right here, I'm rolling off a lot of the bottom end, right down to about 50 Hertz, taking all of that out because the genre again doesn't require too much bottom end. You just need enough punch from between the kick and the bass, and you'll definitely get the vibe that you're looking for. Okay, so that's your kick. Now the snare drum. Again, compressor and the tube EQ. These are all Logic stock plugins. Now this is one of my favorite tools in Logic, Drummer. And all I've done is I've opened up Drummer. I've selected the Neo Soul kit, and I've switched off everything besides the hi-hats and the claps. I've added a bit of a fill here. This week I've just moved this around until I'm satisfied with the velocity and the complexity of the hi-hat. And it's just a quick and easy but really effective way of getting sort of realistic hi-hats laid down. So let's have a quick listen to that. So there's a nice little fill here, and there's another little fill at the end up here. Great. And this here is my crash. Okay, I'll go through and I'll label this up in a minute. We've got some claps here already in the drummer track, but I've layered it with some more claps. I've sampled a hi-hat section from another track I did, which I thought would work really well with this, so I just sampled it and dropped it in. It's from another song. Okay, next thing again, sticking with Logic, stock instruments and loops I've used. Some shakers here, have a listen. Okay, then I've sent all of my drums through to a bus. Okay, I'm using my old favorite, the Isotope Alloy plugin, which I absolutely love. It's an old one, but I'd still use it on pretty much all of my drums. I've got the Kickstart plugin as well, just to give me a little bit of pump in the rhythm. And then, of course, I've added the isotope vinyl. And last thing down here is tube saturation. And again, this is a free plugin. I'll put the link in the description for you. You can download that just to add a bit of warmth, extra warmth to the drums. Okay, and then of course I round off with my Logic compressor. Just to catch those peaks. Might add a little soft distortion. Now the claps and the mids are coming out a little bit more. We'll leave it as that for now. And that's the drum section. Let's bring this in with the keys. Yeah, feeling that. Now this is one of my favorite parts of the whole process, and that's putting down the bass line, especially when it's an electric bass. So the bass line's in two sections. The first part goes like this. And the second part goes like this. So let me lay that down, I'll edit it up, and then we'll move on to the next section. Okay, so we're getting close to the conclusion of the track. I want to add a couple of simple guitar licks to this. And again, I'm not a guitarist, so this is an area where I'm really going to struggle. It's going to take me ages to get this down. But I like to lend my hand to different instruments, and it's all about patience. If you've got an idea and you're patient, put it down and work it in, and trust me, it'll be worth all the effort. Now, before we move on, I've added another layer to the piece. Now these are some pad strings, so have a listen to this. Yeah, so that adds a nice little lift to the progression. Sort of the second half of that 8-bar section. Anyway, I'm going to drop a couple of guitar riffs, but the first one is going to be something like this. Yeah, so that's the vibe of that one. And then I'll work out a second one, throw that in, a few more bits of processing. Then I have one sample that I want to include in this, which is really important. But let's put this down for now, and then we'll move on. Okay, so I've recorded 3 guitar parts, and this one right here is the first one I put down. And these other 2 are played with the muted guitar effect, just for that extra bit of flavor. So let me play this back with some drums and maybe some pad strings, so you get an idea as to what guitar parts went down. Okay, so I'm really pleased with the way things have developed so far. I think I'm going to add a couple of little melody lines on the keyboard, and then I'll add my sample. Okay, so I've put down 2 synth melodies. This is the first one and this one here is the second one. I've developed the bass line a bit more on this second 8-bar section, and we're getting very close to finishing this up. So let's have a quick listen. Okay, so there are my 2 keyboard-based melodic ideas. Now for my sample. Now the sample itself is taken from one of my favorite films of all time, and the film is called Let's Do It Again. It's an absolute classic from 1975. And if you haven't seen this film and you enjoy blaxploitation type movies, you've got to see this one. Now, to avoid triggering any content ID issues with YouTube, I'm not going to play the original audio in its raw form. So I'm going to mess with it and process it and mash it up a little bit. So hopefully the spiders won't detect it and I'll be able to embed this. So let me go away and do this. Okay, so here's the audio sample I've lifted from the movie. As you can see on the channel strip, I've got quite a few effects. I've got the isotope vinyl plugin. I've also got some saturation using the soft tube saturation knob. I'm also using some EQ to filter things out. As you can see from my EQ curve right here, I'm filtering a fair bit from the bottom as well as from the top. I've also used the pitch shifter to drop this down a couple of semitones, and I've also added a stereo spreader just to give it a bit more width. So I'm going to play it back with some drums in the background, and let's see how well I've been able to disguise this. After that, I'll play through the entire production, and that will be a wrap in terms of this video. Okay, cool. So if you are familiar with the film, you would know this scene is a really important one in the movie. Okay, so cool. What I'm going to do now is add some effects to the master bus and then play out the whole track. Great stuff. I really do hope you found the video useful. If you did, drop me a line in the comment section, like the video and subscribe to the channel. This will really help me out. Now remember to support me at deucebeats.com as well as on my social media channels. And finally, switch on that notification bell so just like the rest of the MTTC squad, you will find out as soon as my next video drops. Until next time, I'm Dr. Deuce. Peace.